Okay, mister. Are we going anywhere this week? Are we? Are we going to go somewhere?
I don't know.
You don't know how to answer that question? No, we're not going anywhere. And why aren't we going anywhere? Well, because this week we're not actually looking at any gear or anything else. Well, kind of are almost. But it's anyway, looking at a little area of photography called Aperture Priority. Aperture Priority. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is?
No.
Oh, you refuse to answer every question today, don't you?
You suck.
Well, it's something that a lot of photographers tend to lean on, and so do I. So let's talk about what it is. We'll find out together if it's usable, if it's cutable, and if it's executable.
What the fuck?
So, let's find out together, all right? Grab yourself something to eat or drink. Get yourself comfortable. And let's get it on.
Here I am, Vietnam. Rain is always coming down.
This is Camera Talk with Dr. Scott and his co-host Dylan. Yeah. Woo. Nice reaction, buddy. This week, just like the intro says, we're not talking about gear, lenses, cameras, but we kind of are.
What? No.
I mean, it's what are you going to do with your camera, with your lens, in combination, using Aperture Priority.
So, what are you trying to say?
Aperture Priority, that's right.
Whoa.
Whoa is right, Aperture Priority. So, what do we do with Aperture Priority? Well, most cameras, especially modern cameras, have a setting that gives you Aperture Priority. You know, in Canon world, we have AV on your settings. In Sony world, we have A. In Leica world, we have A. And A is for what?
B.
No, A is for not B. All right. Yeah. So A is for aperture. And what is aperture? Do you know what aperture is? Wow. Aperture. All right, enough of the alphabet, mister. Yeah, enough of the alphabet. So, aperture is the opening and closing of the device within your lens that, hang on, let's let him finish his alphabet here. Are you done? All done? Yeah, good.
I'm a fucking artist. I'm sensitive as shit.
So, aperture closing within your lens are those, if you look down inside the barrel of your lens, you'll see little blades that cross over each other and make a hole open or close, wider or tighter.
That's how you use it.
And that is your aperture. Now, depending on the lens, you may have autofocus lenses that are designed to be set in the camera itself. So you have to turn on your camera, it has to be powered up. The lens has to be attached, which is electronically talking to the camera, and the camera tells it set to f2.8, and then it sets it to f2.8. Now, of course, you don't tell it that, but you press the buttons or change the dial, and away you go. Manual focus lenses, of course, don't do that. It's done manually. It's why they're manual focus, right? And of course, all vintage lenses, like my Konica 1.2, I hear 57 1.2, is from the 1970s, and it's manual focus. So the aperture setting is done manually by moi. Duh. Do you know moi? You speak some French? Yeah? I know the French you speak. Dirty language, you, mister.
Well,
Fuck you.
So, but that, aperture, again, just to jump into what these are, on, again, manual focus lenses particularly, you're going to find an aperture ring. You have a focus ring and an aperture ring, and the aperture ring is going to have little numbers on it. Depending on the type of lens it is, it could be, the most common wide open, large aperture lenses are 0.95. And then they go 1, 1.2, 1.4, 2. Well, some have 1.5, but then 2 and 2.8. Some Leicas were 2.4, 2.5, up to 2.8, and then 3.2 and 3.5, and so on, all the way up. Each one of these little increments is opening or closing that iris. Again, think of it like your eye, when a bright light is in there, the pupil closes down to try and keep that light out of the insides of your eye. And when it's pitch black outside, your iris opens up really wide to try to bring in as much light as you can so you can see. Works the same kind of way.
Do you see the light? What light? Have you seen the light? Yes! Yes! Jesus H. Goddamn Christ! I have seen the light!
But anyway, so your f-stops, and again, this is not a lesson about f-stops and your exposure triangle and all that kind of stuff. But with aperture priority, why do you want to even use aperture priority in the first place? It's to control what they call the depth of field, which is where your focal plane is going to be. So with wide open, like a 0.95, for example, to which I have a few of them up here, they're 50 millimeter 0.95s. When you try to focus from like where the camera is right now, is just under 2 meters away from Dylan's face, you have to really fine tune it to get it to focus in on his eyes, because the depth of field is so shallow that plane, the focus plane, is this shallow. So you may get his nose in focus and not his eyes, or his eyelashes but not his eyes. Or you'll get his eyes but not his hair, and not his nose, and so on and so on. So it's a very shallow depth of field. And why do people even want that? Well, when they're doing portraiture and stuff, it really separates the subject from the background. So the background can melt away, as they call it, or blur away. You see it this way. So, portrait photographers tend to not shoot that wide open anyway, because of that fact that it's so shallow that you're only getting one feature of his face in focus and the rest is blurry. So even at 0.95, people tend to close that down just a little bit to 1 or 1.2 or 1.4 or 2, and so forth, just to bring more and make that depth of field a little wider so that more parts of his face would be in focus. You get that? Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about?
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
No, that's okay. You don't need to know. Later in life, when Daddy gives you his cameras, you can learn all that stuff. So anyway, so you want that, again, with portraiture, a lot of people like that out of focus background. And of course, it's blurry. And the quality of that blur, the out of focus background, is called bokeh.
Rich, smooth, buttery bokeh.
Some say bokeh, but I know it's bokeh.
Sweet, sweet bokeh.
The Japanese don't have a sound at the end of, there's no sound like that at the end of their word, so it's bokeh. Anyway, but you can call it bokeh if you want. I don't really care. But anyway, it's important to some people. They want that out of focus background. Like me, I like it. It's one of the reasons why I have wide aperture lenses that I like to use myself. So anyway, so it's used mostly for portraiture, wide open like this. Now the complete opposite is true for landscape. So, you know, when you're shooting landscape scenes, you want everything in focus. So now your aperture priority is going to go the opposite way. It's going to close up and stop down, you know, from f8 to f10, f11, 16, whatever, you know, how sharp you want it and how far, you know, how much infinity focus you want in focus like that. Because you can't stop down too far. You know, you get to f22 or f32 and whatnot, and your lens could, the result, the resolution could suffer from diffraction.
What you talking about, doctor?
You know, it's again another physics thing with light and the lenses and all that stuff. So generally speaking, f11 through f16 in that range is good for landscapes.
Whatever.
So again, wide open gets the blur, closing down, sharpness. So if you want a nice sharp portrait with a blur still in the background, you're looking at like f4, you know, f4, f5.6. And I'll show you some of those samples. You want to see samples of Dylan? Huh? Yeah, all right, let's show you samples of Dylan right here. Here's Dylan at I use this one, so f1.2, f2.8, f4, I think, and f5.6. Is that what I took pictures of? I think, anyway. Well, here's Dylan at these various apertures. Ready? 1, 2, 3. How do you think you look there? Look good? Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Dylan looked good there. So, so those were the samples of Dylan, and of course we have random stuff too. I could show you various images using the same lens stopped down and whatnot to show, you know, again, portraiture as well as landscape and everything to see what the differences are in that. So I'll show you some of those right here. Huh? What do you think of those? They look pretty good too, right? Look like crap, you always say. Since you're not in the photos, it doesn't matter. So anyway, so the they call f-stops. Even though they're aperture settings on the lens themselves, they control how much light is coming into the sensor. And as with all things to do with photography, it comes down to the exposure triangle, they call it. Because it's not just the aperture, but it's in combination with the shutter speed, how fast or how slow your, now of course if you have a DSLR, you know, it's an actual shutter, the mirror flips up and flips down for a certain amount of time. But if it's mirrorless, which most cameras are these days, it's just, you know, electronically timed for the exposure. So anyway, it is your aperture, your shutter speed, and ISO, which is the sensitivity to light, which each sensor has a different rating. So anyway, we don't know about that. Who cares about that stuff for now?
See, now that's some bullshit.
But the aperture priority is what a lot of photographers use because they're more concerned with the depth of field. If you're a sports shooter or wildlife, you've got birds flying around, everything, shutter speed is going to be your priority in that regard. But that's another video. So anyway, I think that was pretty much what we were going to talk about. So, what do you think, Stinky? Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, good enough to give examples, good enough reasons to know what it is. Again, you can use it autofocus or you can use it manual focus. Either way, it's great to experiment. If you've never tried it, give it a shot yourself and see the results you get. All right, so with that said, again, short and sweet, that's kind of Aperture priority in a chaotic kind of explanation going all over the place. So anyway, how about we give our little plug for Luminar? Our photo editing software that we use is Luminar AI, Luminar Neo. And Luminar Neo is their latest, greatest. It's a mix of AI and Luminar 4. And, they've been releasing some new updates and everything, or upgrades that are pretty cool. So it's worth a shot. It's economical. It's under $100 and a lot of bang for the buck for that kind of price.
Cheap bastards.
So what do you think, Stinky? Is it worth talking about? Yeah. It's full of AI, You know what AI is, since you're making the letter A? You know what AI stands for? Huh? A. You gonna tell us? AI is 1, 2, 3. Ah. No, you smarty pants. It's not that. Artificial intelligence. Luminar is full of artificial intelligence.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Stuff to help you out with dust and spot removal. If you've got little birds flying around in the background at the beach, but you've got some sea spray on your sensor that got in there, don't let sea spray on your sensor. Luminar can recognize the difference between spots and a flock of seagulls. And not eliminate the seagulls. They'll eliminate the spots. Pretty cool. Power line removal. Get rid of the ugly power lines that could be in the background too without you having to brush them on there. Annoying tourists and stuff at the beach. You can use a Gen Erase feature they have now that'll, again, recognize that stuff in the background and eliminate it and replace it with other stuff in the background that blends in and looks nicer. And all kinds of other stuff too. It's a pretty cool bit of software. Economical, as I said. And you want to save some money? You think they want to save money? You want to save $10? Click below. There's a link in the description below. You click on that, and it'll take you to Luminar. You buy a copy of Luminar through that link, and it'll take $10 off. And what do they do with that $10? Do they give it to Dylan? Do they give it to Dylan? Huh? Yeah, darn right they do. Well, they give it to me, and then I give it to Dylan. And what do they call that in the business? They call that kickback. Yeah, kickback. And what are you going to do with your $10? You going to share it with Daddy? Huh? You going to share it with Mommy? Oh, you suck.
That kind of cringe level where your sphincter puckers.
Mommy already gets all Daddy's money, and now you're going to give her our extra money too? Man, God, you trained well, didn't she? Mama's boy. Why, I think Camera Talk can do without a co-host from now on. Anyway. Anyway. Sorry, Daddy still loves you. So, with that said, what else can we say? Who are we? I'm Dr. Scott. You're Dylan.
This is Sparta!
Together, we're all Modesty Photography. We're here to talk about tips and tricks about photography, lenses, cameras, stuff about photography, like we just talked about Aperture priority. You're not listening to me anymore. And, we do one of these every week, every Friday. Remember, it's Vietnam time. So that could be the day before you, the day after you, or the same day as you, depending on your funky time. Yeah. So, should they come back next week? Yeah. And why is that? Why should they come back? Because you belong here. That's right. And where do they belong? What's the name of the show? Come on, sit in front. What's the name of this show? This was Camera Talk with Dr. Scott and Dylan. That's right, Dr. Scott and Dylan. So, thank you for dropping by. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the thumbs up. We forgot to tell them about subscribing. Oh, back the train up here. Holy moly. We need you to subscribe because we need your support, right? We need to build this channel. We can only do that through your sponsorship. And that's not through money, but you subscribing and thumbs upping. So subscribe. Help me out here. This hand. Ready? Subscribe. What's that limpy wrist thing?
Deal with it. Okay, and you're welcome.
Your fingers, my fingers, together we shall subscribe. That's right. And how about the thumbs up? You love the thumbs up, right? Because we get the thumbs up, girls. So let's give them a sample of that. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up. Do 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 do. Thumbs up. So that's thumbs up. And what else?
And now for something completely different.
Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching Dylan and listening to Dylan. Thank you for taking his advice. And thank you for just being you. Is there anything else we want to tell him? You want to say bye-bye? All right, say bye-bye. Say it. Say bye-bye. 1, 2, 3. Bye-bye.
Here I am.